are starting this show with some ugly American sports, and joining me once again for this segment is the host of the Duke CT Lounge, Charles Thomas. Welcome once again.
Hello.
And it's a good, and I definitely want to have you on because we definitely want to. Okay, here's the thing. Look, I was thinking about opening this segment with this long, stretched out joke about how we're going to talk about the worst rules change currently in sports, how it's completely going to be a disaster for the sport in question, going to let you guys possibly believe I was talking about the pitch clock in Major League Baseball and then set you up for the twist. But I'm going to guess you probably weren't going to fall for that anyway, given what shirts and jerseys I chose to put up here for this show. So we'll just get right to the point. What I'm talking about as far as the dumbest rules change coming in recent memory to major sports is this mid-season tournament that the NBA is somehow enacting beginning this upcoming season. I'm going to preface this by saying I have watched very little NBA basketball over the past few years. And Duke, just here to tell you this right now, this announced new tournament isn't making me want to tune in anymore.
Talking about here's this tournament, and I said this on Twitter, and I said it again. Finally a tournament that makes the brawl for all look actually decent. So, I'm honestly gonna say this is probably again a pointless thing because let's really be honest here. What is the NBA's goal here? To try to get new viewers? But
honestly, here's the thing. Okay, so I've got like the NBA's. I guess what I'm guessing is going to be the official description of this tournament because it's on the NBA's official website here. So here's what they're saying is summary. The inaugural in-season tournament will tip off on Friday, November 3rd and culminate with the championship on Saturday, December 9th. The semifinals, which will be on Thursday, December 7th, and championship will take place at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. The in-season tournament will consist of 2 stages, group play, and the knockout rounds. All 30 teams have been randomly drawn into groups of 5 within their conference based on one-loss records from the 2022 to 23 season. Now, that's the first thing I want to talk about here. I've got the supposed group draws here.
Oh, I have them too.
And let's just also this thing up. I'll just talk about the Western Conference here as of right now, because what we have here is in West A, as it's pointed out, we have Memphis, Phoenix, the Lakers, Utah, and Portland. West B has Denver, the Clippers, New Orleans, the Mavericks, and the Rockets. While West C has Sacramento, Golden State, Minnesota, Oklahoma City, and San Antonio. So they've already put this in a situation where the Lakers and Clippers are not in the same group. The Mavericks and the Spurs are not in the same group. It's really like they've completely redesigned the divisions to make even less sense than before. And what gets me about this is they're saying that all tournament games, except for the championship, will qualify for the standings. And I'm thinking like, how do you do that and plan out the rest of the 82-game schedule? How does that work?
Oh no! And then looking at my group play, where the Wizards are going to be with the Milwaukee Bucks, New York Knicks, Miami Heat, and Washington Wizards and Charlotte Hornets. I'm like, why? What is this? I mean, if you really want to be something that was group play, was closer, it would actually be, I believe, Knicks, 76ers, Wizards, and I think you can have Charlotte there too. Like have that Northeast quarter or something. This just seems to be just random teams and random places. In fact,
yeah, like they say it's based off of how they finished in the regular season last year or something along those lines. Okay, so here's what I think this is going on. The best I can tell is, and I'll say this as a soccer guy, it really looks like what they're trying to do is create the NBA's version of the FA Cup, or actually, it's actually with group stages. I've said that a lot, but with group stages and a knockout round, it's actually more akin to the Champions League, to be perfectly honest. But again, as I've said, this was clearly done by people who have no idea of why stuff like the FA Cup or the Champions League work in their regard. Number one, first and foremost, is it's still all the same teams that take place in the NBA. Like, here's the thing. Like, I'll start with what I would basically call the National Cup tournaments here. Now, England basically has 2 knockout round style Elimination Cup tournaments. And most, if not all, other countries around the world have something similar. The first is the EFL Cup, or what's officially known as the Carabao Cup, where that involves all clubs from the fully professional sports leagues in England, which is the top 4 leagues in the English pyramid, which consists of close to about 100 clubs. Keep that in mind. And then the FA Cup. Now that can involve all organized soccer clubs in the entire nation of England, professional and amateur. So one of the things that makes it so appealing is the fact that, especially in the earlier rounds, you have Premier League clubs going up against clubs from other leagues, the lower tiers. And there is a history of those lower tier teams can pick up a win. I remember a couple of years ago, one team from, I think it was the second tier, I forget exactly what club it was, but they pulled off a win against Manchester United at Old Trafford. So it can be done. And ultimately, the ultimate goal is that the prize for winning either the EFL Cup or the FA Cup is you get a berth you're guaranteed a berth in one of the European tournaments. I think it used to be the Europa League. It may be gone down to the recently created Europa Conference League, I think it's called now. But again, the prize is to move on to another tournament where you will face other new clubs that maybe you've never faced before, not just in your country, but across the continent. So that goes back to you said. What is really the prize here? Forget not just for the players themselves, but what's the appeal for the fans to want to watch this thing? What's the prize that makes this really worth watching?
Well, at this point, you look at it. I think the NBA is trying anything to get something going. They want to make the regular season meaningful. And I get that. Making something meaningful in the regular season. Because let's be honest, when your team is like good or consistently goes to playoffs, you're like, well, this is just when you're first like, man, this team's great. You're finally going to the playoffs. It was like, whoo, that was fun. Then they come consistently playoffs, like, I'm just not watching.
Exactly.
I'll watch a couple games here. But then going to the playoffs, then that's the real stuff begins.
And here's the thing.
The thing here, I honestly believe the one thing they should be doing is, quite honestly, you want to make sure that the teams, if people are more into the games first. Nothing change in the games. It's just like, okay, everything's the same, but we're gonna have this pointless tournament. Are they gonna have parades? Are they gonna have people? Yay! They did it!
Yeah, exactly.
Shut down the park. Oh my gosh, they did. They won the thing.
Right.
They won basically. They won a thing that basically at the end of the day no one really cares about.
I mean, yeah, basically, I'll say this: whatever they're going to get award. First off, whatever they're going to get awarded for this in-season tournament, I would say isn't even as valuable as the President's Trophy in the NHL, which that, of course, is awarded to whoever actually runs the gauntlet and finishes with the best record in the National Hockey League. Second thing I want to bring up...
Don't mention that. Don't mention that as a Caps fan. Won it, and they lost. They had a 3-1 lead against the Canadiens, and guess what happened to them? Oh, they got eliminated.
Well, you guys have since won a Stanley Cup, so I'm thinking can be a bit more easier to take. But second thing I want to bring up, because you brought this up, you said it's like they want to make the regular season more valuable. You know how you make the regular season more valuable? You don't add 4 more playoff teams to a play-in tournament to start the playoffs, so that now it's 14, 10 teams or something like that now make the playoffs instead of 8 now? You don't add value to the regular season by being able to get into the postseason with even lower finish.
I think same thing with the NHL. Leagues like the NHL and the NBA should have 1 through 8. The best 1 through 8 teams in the respective Eastern, Western, and such make the postseason. I mean, I remember before the whole COVID thing, and I saw the Metro Division, in such an NHL. They were teams that were just blowing past, for example, the Atlantic Division, and somehow, thanks to being in that Atlantic Division, they are guaranteed a couple playoff spots. Meanwhile, the people in the Metro who are busting their ass and having over 500 records higher than them won't get in the postseason. It should not be like that. And I'm probably seeing that in the NBA as well, that some teams in separate places are separate divisions and such have higher records than another one. They're sorry, you're in the wrong division, buddy. They got to get in anyway. I'm no, the best team should play.
Well, I'll say this. If you're going,
All right, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that for both the NBA and NHL, I will say this. If you're going to do it straight up, 1 through 8 or 1 through 16, you can't have an unbalanced schedule. If that's the case, you gotta find a way to make that work, and I might get back to that in just a minute. But I will actually compare it to what is in Major League Baseball right now. Now, I'm going to admit, when MLB first announced its extended playoffs, I was a bit tepid and a bit worried on it. But now as it's gone, I think after last season, I think it still may be that Major League Baseball still might have the best combination of regular and postseason out there. Because what you got in baseball is, they added more wild cards, but there's still an advantage to trying to really finish with the best overall record, because the best 2 teams in each league automatically qualify for the division series. Everyone else has to play a best of 3 series where the team with the better record gets home field in all of those games, which I think makes it even more of an incentive to try, if you can't finish in the top 2, at least still finish with the best record of the other 4 that get into with your league. So there is still a lot of incentive to try to finish with as best of a record as possible in baseball, compared to the NBA, where all you have to do to qualify yourself for the quarterfinals is finish in the top 6 even.
That's the thing here is because I in looking at this, what happens if the team that wins this tournament doesn't make the postseason?
Well, yeah, and exactly, and that's why it's a catch.
What happens then? What does that say for that whole big tournament? Everything is important. All this new stuff. They win a trophy, but they're not there. It's right there. You just show that. Oh,
and it's a catch-22. And it's a catch-22 situation because, say if the winner of this tournament is given a guaranteed playoff spot. Well, now, congratulations. You've just given that team no incentive to play hard for the rest of the regular season, which is going to be, 3 months or so to go or something like that? It's just, again, it's a non-winnable situation like that. And I know that I'm almost certain that one of the reasons that drove the NBA to, first off, I'm going to say this. As I said, there's a lot of people have been complaining about, I have some friends who've complained about the changes Major League Baseball made, in particular, the pitch
The
clock.
pitch,
Well,
I have no issue with that.
yeah, I can tell you, no matter what some people might say and complaining about it and how it's supposed to ruin the game, I can tell you this. I've been watching baseball for close to 30 years, and probably the number one biggest complaint I've heard from people in the game in that time, outside of maybe how much the players make, is the games were taking too long, and in particular, the pace of the game was getting very bad. People were legitimately complaining about how many times the batter steps in and out of the box and has to adjust his gloves and whatnot, or how many times the pitcher will keep making throw after throw after throw to first base. It really gets to a point in time where I think a lot of people in the stands were wanting to mimic that Monty Python sketch and yelling, "Get on with it!" So I know for a fact that for many years there were calls from people who watch baseball to do something about the pacing problem. And in fact, I actually dug up someone's online article from a couple of years before now that actually suggested calling for a pitch clock on there. So I know there are baseball fans that have called for something to be done to improve the status of the game in that regard. I can't think of anybody who follows basketball who was asking for anything on the lines of a mid-season tournament or whatnot. And the only other thing I can really compare it to the most is the Chase for the Cup playoffs in NASCAR. Because I can tell you this much. For those who are not aware, was the NASCAR playoffs, which were originally called the Chase for the Cup, debuted in 2004. Now that was around that time that I really started to follow stock car racing in that regard. And what happened was, at the time when NASCAR was really starting to set records in popularity for itself, there became a number of concerns for people after 2003 when Matt Kenseth won the Cup with such ease. Like, at one point in time, he had more than a 400-point lead in the standings. And even though it dropped off a bit, he still clinched the championship with a full race to go in the schedule. And it wasn't so much that he won the Cup that easily. It was the fact that he did it while only winning one race for that season, the second race of the year. So he went several months without winning a race and still easily clinched the championship. Now, for a number of people, the solution to this was very simple. Award more points for winning a race. A lot of people thought the difference between first place and second place should not be the same as the difference between second and third, to say nothing of the difference between 42nd and 43rd place. But instead, they just churn out this incredibly convoluted playoff system that's only gotten more and more convoluted as the years go on, in what seems to be like an attempt to try and artificially guarantee that whoever wins the last race of the season wins the championship every year, which essentially negates the importance of all the other races that take place that season. And that's kind of what we're getting at, is that this was done by people who I don't think, one, they tried to create a tournament similar to soccer tournaments around the world without knowing why those tournaments work, in order to make a solution to a supposed problem that no one was asking for this particular solution.
It's a problem that this is again a solution that was a problem that didn't need a really solution here. It was this thing in this NBA. Like I said, this whole thing, to me, I understand what they want to do here. I understand what they are trying to do. I understand what they want to do something, Heck, they said supposedly this was, I look at this article on, you see, it was in, on ESPN article, it says, Adam Silver said, he was talking about this, they were saying this concept has been rumbling around the league office for about 15 years. And you wonder, say, that they said they really want to do something of a European Cup style competition. And I would be for that. maybe they should have done something like this in the postseason. I mean, you could say maybe, maybe introduce knockout rounds of like the first 2 rounds or something, and like say, 8 teams, like your first round is the knockout round, or do that type of thing in the postseason or something like that. But here in the middle of the season, it just seems like it's a waste of time. And like you said, like I said, if the team wins, what else do they do? Because it's like, oh, it's the regular season. Are they going to get a guaranteed postseason slot? Or if not, if they don't win, if they don't make the postseason and they won that thing, it's just going to be like, it's a second place trophy.
Right.
It's a second place trophy. It will be just saying, congratulations. Here you go. You didn't make the postseason. You didn't do anything else, but here's your nice little consolation prize.
Exactly. It's again, it's something that just I really fail to understand, especially how the fans in particular are going to look at this thing as having any sort of intrinsic value whatsoever. And you said it's like the NBA was trying to make their own version of a European Cup tournament. Well, they already have their equivalent of a European Cup tournament. It's called the NBA playoffs. That is, for all intents, the same thing. And again, if they don't include other teams, like if this tournament included G League teams, there might be something to that. Because it might be entirely possible that on a given night for a one-night possibility, maybe a G League team might be able to pull off an upset like that. And that would be something compelling. How do I know it's compelling? Because we see that all the time in the NCAA tournament, which is why that has become one of the most compelling playoffs to watch in all of sports there. But the more I think about it, it seems like this was the NBA's knee-jerk reaction to the number one complaint that most people seem to have about the NBA right now, and that's the issue of load management. It's the fact.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's just they're trying to save their and I get that, but honestly, if they really wanted, like you said, cut that down a bit. I honestly think they should have knockout rounds of like, in the first round, second round, go to 3, then in the finals have a third round best of 5, and in the NBA finals best of 7. Really have that, like, if you'll be shorter, but also you can have interesting upset teams, teams that will automatic. Okay, you get your big dog guys to win, whatever, but then you have the wrinkle of this first round, like, you don't know who might have a good game or a bad game. You can really just like, okay, you might have the big unstoppable thing can have one bad game, and then next they're out. It changes the whole type of whole thing. I'm not saying, oh, they're like, this, that, the other, lazy or whatever, but I think if you add that in of having the first round of the NBA playoffs is a knockout round, second round is a best of 3, and the third round best of 5, and the last one best of 7, you have more interest. More people will be watching because you never know who's going to make it to that part, right? You don't know.
Well, here's
that's what the thing.
So that's your proposal. I'm going to give you my proposal. That's why I think would really, if the NBA really wanted to do something to make the regular season more compelling and make it and especially make the regular season more worth watching, and in the whole load management issues of players being taken off. First and foremost, I would say the first thing we did really start severely fining the clubs more for sitting players, because I'm going to say this first and foremost. I've made my my gripes and criticisms, that's what I'm looking for, of NBA players, but the one thing I will always give them credit for and not question is they want to play. I'm going to say this right now, no matter what, the issue of load management was never a player's decision, in my take, most times than not. Not even LeBron James, I'm going to say this, doesn't want to sit out games. I'm going to give them that much, which brings me into the full situation what I think the NBA should do. And I'm going to say this up front. I know the chances of this are happening are about slim to none. But I'm just going to say what I think it should be. First off, the NBA is currently about 30 clubs right now. I think you got to expand the league to about 36 clubs, so to speak. But then split the team off into 2 tiers. I think you know where I'm going with this ultimately. The top level of NBA is down to 20 clubs. The other 16 it would be in a secondary tier. Now you go back down to maximum of 8 clubs per conference, or even just do the full, if you want to, just do the full single division tier of top 16. And to do that, you cut the regular season down to what I think would be 72 games. Or 76 maybe. Maybe 76 games. Whatever schedule you get to where all 20 clubs play everybody exactly 4 times a regular season. Just calculate 19 times 4, and that's the number of games you have. And here's how you get what he does. It's top 16 get into the playoffs, other 4 relegated, replaced by the top 4 clubs in the secondary tier. Oh, but what about the draft, people are going to say? Elementary, simple, number 1 pick in the next NBA draft goes to whichever team wins the second tier championship. Because you get into the playoffs, basically the top 4 teams in the second tier get into the playoffs and automatically qualify for promotion into the NBA 1, as we might call it. But whoever wins that championship out of that 4-team playoffs gets the number 1 pick in the NBA draft that year. And I've heard some people question this, but again, you want to make it so that the entire regular season, because here's one of the things that got me. It took just 2 years after the Mavericks won the championship in 2011 that they were basically back to only fighting for a 7th or 8th seed in the playoffs. And I had people here in the local sports media telling me that the Mavericks would have been better off tanking for the number 1 draft pick than fighting for the 7th or 8th playoff seed and possibly a first round elimination. That to me ultimately sums up how screwed up the NBA system is, and why more than ever why I'm thinking some sort of relegation promotion system is needed in all about sports, but probably the NBA more than anything else.
Yeah, that's the thing. They need to have that, and I truly believe that there needs to be something done with the first round pick stuff, because I truly think we should. The NBA should have, same thing as the draft. I mean, the lottery does mitigate the tanking thing a bit, but then again, you got the Spurs, who just basically was flat out tanking last year, and they got rewarded. So
well, they did the same thing to get Tim Duncan.
Yeah, and everything else.
Never going to convince me otherwise.
Yeah, they did, and other teams as well. So I think there should be, you want to get the number 1 pick, you're going to have to do these, maybe a mini tournament. I wish it was. Gosh, I really wish that maybe they should do something like that. But then again, I can just imagine the NBA, the player associations, after the season's done, they're done. That sort of thing, because I think that will be an issue. Because if they're like, oh, they might get hurt, the player might get hurt, or they have other commitments, or any type of movie or anything else, they can start filming when the season's over. Oh, they can't because they're one of the teams are now qualified for this tournament to get no one draft pick, that sort of thing. So, that could be an issue too. So, I mean, that's a good idea, and I truly think that should be there. But there's I don't know what like I said, these player leagues will kind of be like you'll probably because they got a good thing going now. They don't want to mess with it. I think
Well,
that's the
it would
issue.
wait. I feel wait and see that. The one thing that gives me some hope is keep in mind the NBA Players Association was very much in support of that one rule change they've agreed to, where they say a player should have to have played 60 games in the regular season to qualify for any awards. So personally, part of me would think that if anything that would clamp down and if that flat eliminate the process of the owners in particular and the league hampering players' abilities to win games and possibly win championships, I just have a feeling that the players and the players' union will very much be in support of that, because I do still, whatever issues I might have with NBA players at that level, I still, in my gut, believe the competitive drive is there for most players, and the problem with things like tanking and whatnot does fall almost exclusively on the owners. And if the league could, and that's the one thing I will point out, because I think that what you look at here is this in-season tournament is something that it's almost like a smoke screen, to put it that way. It's something that the league suits came up with to supposedly put more importance on regular season games while not actively punishing the owners for what they've done to not put as much emphasis on regular season games. But just anything that might actually punish the owners and give more incentive to allow the players to play out the regular season. Part of me just thinks that the players and the union would be in very much support of that.
Yeah, that's the hope. That is the hope. But again, I think it's gonna be like I said, it will probably be a lot of talking, a lot of negotiating with that. But like I honestly though, looking at this tournament though, I get what they're trying to do. Like I said, but man, I just don't see it. I just don't see fans. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this could work. Maybe this can give the NBA the shot in the arm in the regular season, and this could be a success.
Now,
Maybe it can be a success.
maybe
But I realize I just like, man.
Yeah, for me personally,
I hope it works. But if it doesn't work,
yeah.
well,
I just can't help but think that I just think back to what happened with NASCAR, and they thought that their playoff system was going to work and be a success, and in the years since, it's been anything but. To when NASCAR has basically best devolved back not just into a niche sport, but to a niche sport that drove away its hardcore fans. To where the last few years that I was going to races, some of the attendance was just sad to see. And you know what? I'll say this much. The NBA is such a worldwide juggernaut that I doubt it will ever fall to that level anytime soon that NASCAR's going. But yeah, my gut feeling is this is not going to be the jolt in the arm, at least toward the regular season, which I've said, as far as the pros go, maybe the most useless regular season in all of sports. And just my gut feeling says this is not going to be as successful as the people in the front offices think it's going to be. If nothing else, it hasn't convinced me to start tuning in anymore. But maybe I might be the outlier there, but my gut just feels that that's not going to be the case. And my gut's been pretty correct more often than not in these cases. I'm not bragging, just pointing that out.